And so you want to start with which part do you want to start with? Go. So it says, huh?
Sometimes people text me. So.
So the first portion is the creation of the world and creation of humanity and creation of the skies and the stars and so on. For those of you that are challenged by the idea and have been living within the confines of a story that God might be a human could not have possibly created the stars or the oceans. So that's off the table. But if we understand that it's an expressive creative force, why force? Because it's constantly expressing itself. That means it's active and it's constantly engaged by our need to move forward, or our desire, or our ambitions, or our intentions. All three stimulate creation. This is Lucy, by the way. And so it's a creative force because it's active and it's consistently creating through us. So it needed to express itself. It needed to express itself. I don't know who's talking. Is that Alex? So I'm going to ask you to refrain from your comments until the class is somewhat rolling. And if you want to make a comment, please put your questions or comments on the side. Even if you think it's absolutely wrong what I'm saying, give us an opportunity to give you a view of our side of the idea of creation. So for those of you that have read the Bible and are scholars in what you think you understand as consciousness, I actually have an experience, I would say 36 of them, that have given me an understanding of how creation works. So mine is not a learned experience, it's actually experiential, as my dear uncle would say. But the whole goal of sharing these classes is that the creative side is a consistent movement and we direct its process. So there's always an opportunity for a new beginning. There's always an opportunity in every day you can apply yourself in creating reality. There are commentaries and people that have learned them at length. They're confined to the commentary because they can't see past their own nose. But if you apply the daily understanding, the understanding of the story and of creation, whether you read Kabbalah or you read Gemara or you studied whatever, the Bhagavad Gita, it's not relevant, because if once you have an actual spiritual experience, you understand that the creative process is defined by you and what you choose and how you choose to direct it and what you understand to be true. So, in the relationship you choose in how you pursue whatever it is that you're pursuing.
So you would say that we have an opportunity to be in creation and to have a new beginning every single day.
Absolutely.
Every day is a fresh start. I mean, we have experiences, whether it's in our way of living, where whatever vibration we are part of gives us the opportunity to start again. There's many new beginnings within our vibration, whether it's our religion or whether it's the way we live. But we also have it in astrology, and we're constantly renewing ourselves and we're constantly having new beginnings. But specifically and particularly every single morning, every wake up is a new beginning. It is said that the day starts as if you were born every single day. Of course, we have a continuation to our life, but every single moment can be a new beginning if we choose to make it so.
So the way you'd make it practical or consider applying it to everyday life for people that have an issue moving forward or living in some sort of depression or are consumed by their reality and consumed by their circumstances. The circumstances are created by you. It's not the creator that created your circumstances. It's your belief system that guided the creative process into creating your circumstances. So your circumstances are a product of your understanding of creation. More importantly, you can, regardless of what age you are and what physical condition you're in, you can start over. And it's the beginning, you could say, it's the first day of the rest of your life. And the reason for that is because the creative process doesn't stop. It doesn't serve you more than it does others. The more you understand about it, the broader your view and understanding of consciousness is, the more effective you become in co-creating what you desire instead of what you don't desire. So if you're consumed or you've accepted someone as your savior, or you believe that God is a man, well then a man is not an unlimited source of energy. And the way the creative force creates is it fuels the human experience and all other experiences with energy. So you can lose yourself in the study of different levels of reality. But the truth is, there's a way to achieve, if you want to pursue, if you're stagnated in a business, or you're lost in a lack of direction, if you don't understand that the creator is a flowing force that fuels your soul, and you don't have a ritual, or you don't have that simple understanding, you can't pursue anything. Nothing will work for you. I don't care how much capital you have and who you know, nothing will unfold. You cannot fuel a new stage without an understanding that the creator is an actual energetic flow. And I didn't read that in a book. It wasn't a wellness. I don't have a certificate on my wall for life coaching. The idea of this class was to share my practical experience. I found that uh, in my community, in my religion, there are a lot of learned people that know a lot of discourse, but the discourse happens to be from people of a certain time that had a certain um, perception of reality. I'm not saying that my perception is better or worse, it's just different. There are folks out there that I found are on the same lines. If you're a Christian, I would read um, Ernest Holmes, uh, the Science of Mind, and what's the Godal? What's the name? Godal? No, God forbid. um, the one from the 40s that we listened to, the preacher from the Bahamas. I'll find the name. I'll say
his name skipped by.
Goddard?
Goddard, right.
Neville Goddard, yeah.
Oh,
Neville Goddard.
I've been listening.
Amazing.
Yes, incredible.
And it's a flow, it's a constant flow of consciousness, and it's a very concrete flow. Obviously, the guy was a realized guy, and he clearly understood the Bible and understood. He actually integrated his realized understanding, kind of like myself, but he didn't heal anyone. He was just a visionary and had a very clear view of how things work. So, by the way, I'm not downplaying the value of um, folks in my community that study and learn discourse. It's where they are, and it's what they need to know, and what's what they need to understand. That knowledge has been around for thousands of years, and obviously it's worked for our community.
I mean, there's incredible value and depth within the discourse, and it also serves to all different levels of intellectuality, or it applies to every level of how intellectual and your understanding that you have.
So
It's not just.
I'll tell you why I'm bringing it up, because once you learn a concept, let's say I learned a concept about um, Noah, which is today's I think it's last week's topic or this week's topic. Last week's. Last week's topic about Noah. Noah, I don't know how many people know that it's part of certain discourse in my community that prior to Noah, people's fingers were in closer proximity, meaning they weren't able to spread them out. And the reason is because their bodies reflected or were expressions of the intellectual and emotional and spiritual perception of the time. So their bodies were confined because their souls didn't have a broader understanding. After Noah, the fingers were as they are today, meaning, yoga speaks about this clearly. A flexible body is a sign of a flexible mind, which means after what Noah brought, wasn't just comfort. His father named him as a visionary. Noah brought understanding to humanity, which gave us a broader view of reality and liberated us from our confinement. Because once if you consider that when your fingers are in closer proximity, you have to work and toil harder to achieve your goals. So I've never read discourse, and if it's out there, I would love to see it, because that talks about um, that the body is an expression of the soul. I think Anatomy of the Soul by the Nachman Rebbe, but it's very short lived, and it's written by one of his students, and there's nothing specific about. Maybe the Lubavitcher Rebbe that talks about, strings being attached to each portion of the body. There are astral cords that lead into the ethers, and so they're fed by energy through observance. But that's not in any other religion. You can't find that kind of understanding. So the purpose of having this class was to engage other people of different understanding and different religions to clearly understand that it's not a religion. You're not following a religion. And if you are following a religion, it's great because it keeps you within the confines of an order, which then gives you a morality based on where your soul's vibration is. So if you need to know that, if you need to know that there's a guy in the sky in order to keep you morally correct, well, then that's what you need to know. That's the level of your intellect. But once you get past the idea that there is no God in the sky, that God is everything, and we direct the creative process based on the broadness of our mind and our willingness to accept that we are its vehicle, well then, all of our heroes in the Bible brought a kind of intellectual, emotional resolve. Noah brought the 7 Noahide laws because that's what humanity was ready for.
Not only did Noah bring comfort and resolve, he brought an entire new beginning. And in the story of Noah, there's somehow a repetition, there's a parallel to the creation of the world, where the waters were separated, so the flood brought a complete renewal of the world and all its animals except for the fish. Fish were the only ones who didn't partake in this renewal and rebirth. He was the only one who stayed, Noah, as a representative of humanity.
So I find it interesting that, especially in my community and some of my loved ones that may or may not be listening, they know the Torah forward and backwards, but when it comes to their health, they run to the doctor, which means they know nothing about creation and they don't understand the power of the deliberate intent and the flow of energy from the Creator. Because once they understand that um, healing yourself doesn't require a physician to cut into you and pull your issue out, or you don't have to rely on medication, then you understand that just like Noah brought resolve, you can consider an ailment or a physical obstacle with your health as a guideline, which then can, if you see it and understand how you co created that obstacle, then you can overcome by recognizing that you received the Creator's energy, but somehow you're either misdirecting or misusing it. So it's being stagnated and it's reflected in your health issue. So then once you understand that you did that for yourself and to yourself, then you can liberate yourself and start over.
Well, it's we've been conditioned for so many years to not only rely on the medical community and what they have to say and seeing them as an authority, but not knowing the authority that we have inside, that we can do this, that we can actually command ourselves. We are the commander in chief of our own selves, and we can command our bodies and we can heal from the inside, not only with our emotions, but intellectually as well, the way we understand it.
So,
but we've been conditioned to.
I definitely want to address what she's saying because it's a huge part of this portion of the Bible, healing and self-healing. I didn't read that in a wellness book either. It's what I do for a living, sometimes 4 hours and sometimes 12 or 14 hours a day for the last 26 years. And I found proof in the Bible that we are, and through, of course, my 26-minute Moses experience, that we are our own commander in chief of ourselves, that we tell ourselves. So if the soul is the driving force and the engine of the body, then once we recognize the reason why we don't have peripheral vision, because we're not willing to see the truth, we're not willing to accept that what we're seeing might be narrowing our vision. And so then once we're willing to recognize that no one did that to us, it's not just glaucoma or some nonsense that came from outside, and God's not punishing and rewarding us, then we can recognize what we need to do to ourselves and with our understanding in order to resolve the issue.
So we're constantly being given opportunities through these health issues,
absolutely,
to recognize and to
right. So if you don't panic and run to the doctor to get X-rays and medication and shots and surgeries, then you can take the time. Even the time that's given to you to resolve the issue is also part of the change, because you're given an opportunity by the creative force to make corrections on in relation to your views of how things unfold for you and the world around you. And you're given an opportunity to, even if you're in your bed or you're in a hospital, you're given an opportunity to take a break from running from your issues. You're given an opportunity to integrate and to pause and to understand how you developed it and how you're responsible. Well, now if you're responsible, it's not enough just to do an imagery exercise, because that's a part of it. It's a huge part of it, because everything you can imagine is real. We talked about this in one of the first classes, but doing an imagery exercise is not going to help you. But stimulating and having and creating a relationship with the creator and the understanding that it's constantly creating and expressing itself through you. That's what the idea of creation is. In all of these portions, in the last portion of the Bible and this portion, the idea is it's a healing manual. You can look at it as a guideline. You can look at it as a manual for success. You could look at it as a manual as long as you're willing to take responsibility, you'll always be successful because you're the one responsible. The onus of your illness or your mishaps at work or your challenges in school or your partner, none of that is anyone else's fault.
Wait, so even when the events that are happening are not directly yours, but you're exposed to something around you, it's happening around you and the people around you, does it still pertain to you?
Yes, because if it's in your peripheral view and you're getting to observe it, then it's you who needs to witness that experience so that you can understand the challenges of it, whether it's a bully or a boss that has an attitude problem, or your neighbor that doesn't like your music, or your spouse who you know, goes to sleep too late and you're annoyed that they don't come to bed. So regardless of what the circumstance is, if it's in your peripheral view, then it's intended for you to see it. And that's how the creative world, um, the creator, gives you an opportunity not to see your mirror. It has nothing to do with mirrors, it has to do with how you direct through your understanding into the human experience, whether it's masculine, feminine, or bipolar or bisexual, it doesn't matter. What matters is once you take responsibility, then there's no one to blame. And then you can make the correction. You, what I call, take your power back.
So how do you address this situation? Because if I have a story and my life, my experience is showing me what I am to see, and for me ideally to correct it, right? I'm being exposed to my own story. If I already have a story, how do I get to correct that? How do I get to
If you're willing to recognize, look, Noah's father was obviously a visionary, and he called him Noah because Noah means comfort, right? So then, if we look at the portion of last week's Bible, you can see that once he took responsibility, there's a lot of blame on Noah that he didn't engage other people, that he was maybe a drunk and irresponsible, and he didn't go around and engage other people in understanding and warn them about the flood. I don't know if anybody knows this. I'm sure the observant folks know it, and some of my people that are on here, they're aware of this, but it's not common knowledge that Noah's blamed for a lot. But it's not our responsibility to go and save anyone.
Yeah, but they were unsavable. They were not clean. They couldn't move on to that next step and that next renewal of a new beginning. It was literally a new creation of the world. It says that God gave the opportunity, a complete new opportunity for a new humanity. So how can you take something that's already tainted? Because it is said that even the animals were, it was complete chaos and disorder. So how could Noah have taken some of that, whether it was part of humanity or those animals that were tainted, and take them into the new reality?
I guess first, I don't believe it was Noah's responsibility to go save anyone, and I think it was in his life plan to be removed and intoxicated because he was going to bring renewal for everyone. Water is emotion, so he brought emotional renewal for the entire human race. And it's part of the reason why he had two of each animal, so that there's the two sides of ourselves. And they were all expressions of what we struggle with.
There was also 7 species of the kosher animals. Is what the story tells. So it was 2 of each, and there was 7 of some animals were. It was 7 of them.
Well, I couldn't tell that to Christian and Muslim folks. I don't know if they relate to that. So the idea is personal renewal, and it's not our job to save anyone. There are a lot of folks that insinuate that, well, I'm trying to get my spouse to participate in the things that interest me. You don't need to get your spouse to do anything. You need to set the standard of your interest. And if your spouse will only take you seriously if they can see that what you're pursuing is actually helping you, and you're happy and you're smiling in the morning, and that you are inspired and you're moving forward. But if you're constantly demanding that your spouse believes in you and you want them to participate in something that you don't truly believe in, you're just a good student and you accumulate knowledge well, but you don't do anything for yourself. So you can't get the other to participate because they don't believe in you. They don't trust your pursuit because it's incomplete, if that makes any sense. So if uh, in order for my reality to reflect who I am and express to me who I am, I have to be the change that I want to see in the world. So that's why I think Noah's story is very, very important. I think it was intentional that he was drunk and he didn't go to save anyone. It's hard enough to roll out of bed to push yourself to do something productive and be connected and keep to a schedule and a rhythm and a conviction and commitment. It's harder to drag dead weight around and have a spouse that you have to constantly convince to do the right thing, or to have a partner at work that hold on a second, ladies. Um, sorry, the kids are communicating. Um, so I think the practical meanings are not expressed in the discourse. And if there is discourse, maybe I'm just, small minded and narrow and I haven't read it. But I can tell you over 26 years, I've talked to all kinds of folks and read all kinds of stuff. And I think the closest I've ever come to anything remotely smart that had this kind of view on the Bible was Chaim Luzzatto, whose editor I spoke to in Israel. I went to Israel and somehow ran into him. He edited 24 books for Luzzatto, who understood people who have abilities to see, to heal, and so on. And he understood prophecy, so to speak. I don't think completely because I read a lot of the stuff. I don't think there's discourse out there that describes and gives ideas and practical ideas and understanding based on these stories.
There's different theories, but
I also believe that
there's more theories kind of criticizing but not really taking the story into a practical view on how we can use it for our daily lives, how we can apply these stories to us. I haven't seen it.
It's great for discussion. Look, we can have a discussion of all the people that have written discourse on it. I'm not beating my chest insinuating that my view is the only view, but the only way to look at reality is a realized way, meaning that the creator is acting through us. We are its tentacles, and change happens as a result of us. When we change, then the reality changes. And it's not our job to drag people to safety or save them or rescue them. It's our job to engage people based on the standard that we set for ourselves and we set by example. Is that a question?
Yeah.
And the only way you can set an example is not by demanding that the other human being does something that you think is good for them, like maybe eating chia pets or chia peas, or what do they call them? What do they call them? Those things you eat? Yeah, chia seeds. She can turn blue in the face to tell me that they're good. they're only good if I see that they're working for her. But if she's just eating them and they're not doing her any good, then she's wasting her time and trying to drag me into something that I don't need to be doing. So I think I mentioned this. I had an experience with Sai Baba. And he said, I asked him, how do we, what's the best way to be in a relationship? He said something convoluted, but it made a lot of sense to me. I saw him in spirit, by the way. I never met Sai Baba. He said, we are not to want the other to be what we want them to be for us. We are to be what we want them to be ourselves. And I think Noah's story is a confirmation to that.
Yeah, he had to
set a
lead
new
by
standard.
example.
Yep. He had to set a new standard.
He had to be that. He had to be the new world, the new humanity, the new start.
And there was no saving other people. There was no need to run around and try to engage them and pull them into, look what Moses went through trying to convince people to come with him and believe that there's only one creative force that sustains them. So Noah, I think, not by incident or accident, was kind of detached and drunk and considered irresponsible. And there are some folks that live in my community and believe in the idea of good deeds, but good deeds don't do anything. You can be a good person, that doesn't make you spiritual or godly. Good doesn't mean anything at all. A lot of liberal, even Orthodox folks, they say, well, I show up for my family. It doesn't mean anything that you show up. Nothing.
So you have to constantly do your part.
You constantly do your part. You constantly have to engage. You constantly have to learn. The more you learn and understand how you can apply morality or gather yourself from the impulses of the human experience, the more effective you become in creating the world around you that you really desire. So change happens instantly. Then externally, it takes time to happen because you're dealing with a physical reality. And that physical reality reforms itself based on the magnitude of your light. So if you're willing to take your power back, your light then increases. And then all of a sudden, the external reality starts to take change. You just don't notice it right away.
So when you say change happens instantly, you mean in your soul?
I can only tell you from experience that I've treated people with tumors, and they say, "Well, Vlad, oh, you've been treating me and nothing's changed." Well, I can't share my view because I'm the only one that sees the energy change. When I take the life out of the tumor, and then all of a sudden 3 weeks later it goes away. And I've had the opposite. I treated a dog. My friend Jen years ago had a doggy who she came home and called me, said, "Oh, I'm holding on to an orange sized tumor." I said, "Well, keep holding on. I'm going to work on it." And her mother was really, really nervous. I treated for about 18 minutes and they took it to the doctor. And by the time they got to the veterinarian, the tumor was gone. Why was it gone in a dog and maybe not gone so fast in a person?
No, because the dog is pure and it doesn't have that intellectual
attachment.
Right.
So the same with work, the same with intentions, the same with business and nurturing your reality, your children especially. If you're not attached to your story of who they were, then you can engage yourself in receiving and help them have a new life so that you can allow them. Remember, especially if you're a mother, you set a standard and confine them with your perception and your story about them. And then they constantly give you proof of what they believe to be true. What you believe to be true.
Can you expand a little on that? Can you really explain that concept? Because that changes everything. The idea that we constantly allow ourselves to give a new beginning for somebody else because of the way we see them. When we see someone in a certain way, and that's all they are, then that's all they're going to be for us constantly. But when we allow ourselves to change that perception of that person, and kind of release them from that diagnostic condemnation that we have on them, then the person suddenly changes, and they change for, for us, because our perception changed first.
So, there are folks that learn, let's say, um, study of facial features, which is very popular today. And my uncle is an expert at it. But study of facial features it's a double-edged sword, because if I see you, for those of you that are on here that know about morphology, if I see you as a bilious, then I have a story about who you are and who you may or may not be. And that story confines me and confines my perception to constantly expect the same thing, the same results, and the same responses from you. That doesn't allow me or you to develop a relationship, because I have a tool through which I'm looking for your flaws. I understand your shortcomings. I'm superior because I see you. More importantly, I'm not allowing you to change. So, for years, I was told I was nervous temperament and my lungs are small and I can't run long distance. I'm 57 years old. I can do 10 rounds of kickboxing, constantly moving, 3-minute rounds with 1 minute rest. I can run 6 straight miles without stopping at 6 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. So it's not nonsense. It has value, but it confines you to a perception that doesn't allow for change. So if I constantly have a story about, one of our participants here, um, they have a need to be right, and they're bilious, and they're constantly evaluating what I'm saying, and they have many thoughts per second, and now they're having an internal dialogue while I'm speaking. But that doesn't have to be true, because it's a story from the past. I understand the power of my perception. So as long as I'm constantly connected and I'm willing to allow for change and accept unlimited possibilities because of the creator's participation in my life and my ability to create, then what happens is then your structure of your face doesn't dictate our relationship. What dictates our relationship is my perception of you and what I've chosen to give life to. And then it starts to develop, and that's the relationship I'm choosing. I'm not interested in your confined diagnosis.
So can you have kind of a relaxed perception, so you don't have a strong constant perception on somebody, and you allow them to change?
For sure.
Especially with kids, we get to see kids in a certain way.
My sister-in-law has a remarkable little girl, and I really wasn't excited when she was born. I don't know why. I just wasn't in that place. And we had an experience. She had a little health challenge. We had an experience on FaceTime. The mother panicked and called me, and she was, her head was falling back, and she was short of breath. And she's what, for those of you that know morphology, she's pure billions. Now, she's not really interested in me because of her temperament. She's not interested in me because she's always on to the next. She needs constant challenges to overcome. The moment, because I create a relationship with her and I don't have a story about her temperament, every time she sees me, nothing else exists. She's completely enamored. She laughs and flirts with me and smiles at me and makes faces, because I made a relationship with her soul and not with her face. I connected to her energetic body, which gave life to this expression. But now, if I don't confine myself to what I believe to be true about her based on some diagnostic or some standard, then I'm giving myself an opportunity and her to create a relationship on a higher level. And that's what observance in Judaism and uh, Islam and in Christianity provides us with. Observance means I'm constantly raising my vibration through my devotion, so that my standard is not confined by my intellectual perception. Does that make any sense? So I'm not left to my intellectual, oh, I read a bunch of books and I know you're a narcissist. Doesn't mean nothing. It means nothing. Because if that's my view of you, then that's what it'll always be, because it's based on something that was. My view of you doesn't have to be stagnated by what was, because the only thing that's constant is change.
So the idea that people don't change is obsolete too.
Absolutely not true. Some people need prison to change. Some people need day camp to change. Some people need to break a glass and their entire life changes because they just shattered themselves into pieces and they understand the implications, and it tells them everything. And yesterday I spoke to a woman who said, I was a substance abuser for so long, I forgot how to hear noises. And I was at my mother's house and I actually heard a bird sing, and it changed everything. And she stopped everything. And that's it. That was the change. So um, reality is different for everyone. And the change is caused by, I can tell you that I'm really not that smart. I've had all these experiences because my brain is a magnifying glass and my soul gives me a view of things from a different perspective than most people. I can tell you that I was exhausted by my impulsive behavior, and that's how I cause change. That's what causes change for me. And then I understand the process that I've gone through, and so I'm willing to be new all over again. I'm willing to become new. I'm willing to set a new standard. I'm willing to be the driving force of my family. I'm willing to take on new responsibilities, because ages doesn't mean anything. Look, you see that woman on the left, Tina? That's my mother. She's always ready for change. She's a bull. She has biceps bigger than most of you. She'll outrun any of you. So she's never gives up, and she gave you my standard.
We love Ina.
Who's that?
That's Lucy.
What's up, Luce?
Hi. This is my favorite.
So, and by the way, she's 75 or 76. Which one? 76. Anyway, I know there are lots of you that have been around lots of information. The difference between what I'm offering you and what we're offering you is that I think, aside from the fact that my wife is really adamant about what she knows, and she's really excited about the Bible and how we live, she's a big fan of mine. So she's she's lived the changes, and so I can tell you, and you can ask yourself if this is true for you. She wakes up with a smile every day. That's how I know my thing works. I mean, my concepts. So when your spouse wakes up with a smile on her face every day and sings to the doggies and talks to the plants, and it's not contrived, you know you're in the right place. But until then, you have to set the standard. So then change and be willing to accept that every day is new, that you're not doomed. No diagnosis is a death sentence. You don't have to be confined by someone else's perception of you. And you're not defined by your allegiance. I have an allegiance to many things because I desperately wanted to be a part of something my entire young life and young adult life. And I always stuck myself in a situation because I wanted to be a part of something. I needed someone to be there so my sense of urgency for them became so impenetrable. If I'm with you, I'm with you. That's it. Or it doesn't matter what kind of circumstance. Then I realized my allegiance, my false allegiance, and the unwillingness to change my allegiance limited my possibilities and didn't allow me to take charge of my own life. and have a sense of urgency for me. So I don't roll out of bed because I have a partner, or it's for my wife, or it's for my kids. I roll out of bed because I want to be well. And I go to meditate and do yoga for me. I train for me and learn for me, not because I have children to support, or my wife needs it, or my uncle needs it, or whoever else. And I highly recommend, and I think I don't just recommend it. I think that this portion of the Bible speaks volumes about all these concepts. I just make them personal, and I really experience them, and I understand that newness. In order to allow newness, in order for me to change, you could say we're all Noah. I'm Noah. I wasn't drunk, but I'm not. I don't have time to drag dead weight around. I'm not interested in trying to convince people to come along for the ride. I'll set a standard. I'll fight for you if you'll fight for yourself. But if you want to continue to retell your story as if someone did something to you or something happened to you, and your life is so unfortunate because someone else is responsible, you're responsible. You want to take responsibility and stop blaming? That means you took your power back. And now you can roll out of bed because you value you. And then the people you blame no longer have an effect on you, because now you're directly connected to God. You've made space. You've extracted or exorcised yourself of those people that you claimed were your the bane of your existence, and they didn't allow you to move forward, and they brought you to this place, and they did this to you, and they consumed your time, or they none of that's true. It's all nonsense. You made it up to justify your lack of movement and your sense of urgency for yourself. And that's all I have to say about that. Anything else? Anybody else?
Do you have any questions?
Going
No.
once, going twice, sold. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Love it.
Good week.
Thank you. Bye.